Hi there and welcome back to the Nourishing Routes channel, where I show you how to love food, adore your body and most importantly become your authentic self. In this week's episode, I'd really like to talk to you about real recovery, what that means for me and you, and how you can always choose real recovery over a life determined to live by the restraints of an eating disorder, which we all know isn't very good. But I'll firstly jump in by saying, well, real recovery, as I used to think it was a weight. It was being fully recovered in terms of feeling like I would never suffer from any form of disordered eating thought ever again. And the thought of real recovery was quite unrealistic. And I know we have a lot of hashtags on social media these days proclaiming real recovery, I'm choosing real recovery from an eating disorder. But what does it actually mean? Well, as I've learned, real recovery isn't necessarily an end point, such as being a healthy weight, being able to live life in a fully healthy body. Yes, those things definitely go part of recovery. But what's really important is understanding that real recovery is actually a journey rather than an end point, and that you can jump into real recovery no matter what your current weight is, even if you aren't at a so-called emaciated state or really underweight. But real recovery is available to everyone, even if you're at a currently healthy weight in a so-called healthy body, as medical professionals like to call what recovered is. But real recovery for me goes a little bit more deeper than the physical exterior of what we look like, or even what our blood tests come back as saying, we're not at risk of, passing out anymore or any strange things like that. But real recovery comes into terms of everyday living and choosing life fundamentally over an eating disorder. So this is to say that never ever again will you ever have a disordered eating thought. So you might wake up, like me sometimes, I'll be perfectly honest, and I'll be really having a crappy start to the day. I'll think, I just feel so sluggish, I feel like my thighs are huge, I wish I could just be slimmer, I wish that I could gain more control over food because that would make me feel happier. Especially when life feels out of control, it's easy for eating disorder thoughts to just creep their way back in, because when our minds are so full of other random jargon or other stresses and things, it's our mind's instant kind of thought to, let's jump back into something that feels safe, which for many of us, especially if you've ever had an eating disorder in the past or an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating, is often, let me control food. That might be an avenue into feeling better. Of course, we know that isn't always the case, and even though we might get that slight buzz initially, it will eventually fade and we'll be caught in the restriction mode of prison of what an eating disorder is. But for me, real recovery is just about choosing life again. So although you might have those negative thoughts, it's about being strong enough to actually say, no, I'm not going to engage in that thought. I'm not going to turn that thought into an actual behaviour. And real recovery is also about being compassionate to yourself and understanding that, you haven't relapsed completely if you've, maybe not reached a calorie target in a meal plan or done everything perfect that day of what recovery is supposed to look like and what it's expected and glamorized as looking like. Because let's be totally honest, recovery can feel, for want of a better word, really shitty sometimes. Yeah, we can go into it all with this motivated heart and longing for a better life, but that might last for a day or two, and then sometimes we just really feel as though we need the eating disorder back. Again, real recovery is about really analysing those thoughts and actually asking yourself, how can I choose life over the eating disorder once again, even when I'm feeling really, really bad? I also find that real recovery means just actually not engaging in disordered behaviours that for other people might not seem disordered behaviours. So let me give you an example. It might mean, going to a cafe or a restaurant. It might mean, stopping yourself from meal checking the menu. So you might want to initially go on there and check the calories of the menu and base your food choice on what has the lowest calories in. Even though it might seem like a decent portion, to other people they might think, great, She's eating, she's recovered, she's picking real recovery, she's on her way now, or he's on his way now to recovery. But in the back of your mind, you know that you've actually chose the eating disorder option. You've chose to have a lower calorie snack or a meal or a safe option that seems healthy or more acceptable to your eating disorder rather than what you really, really want. And in real recovery, it's about learning what you want and not what the eating disorder wants. And really thinking deeply, what does my heart and soul want to eat and not what the eating disorder does? Another example, which, I've done loads of times in my own recovery journey, is I thought I wanted, say, a chocolate bar for a challenge snack or a cake or a brownie or a flapjack. And I've, as we all do, living in the UK, it's plagued with calorie options on the menu. So I've seen that this cake or something has X amount of calories in, or this chocolate bar has X amount of calories in. And I know that I could choose, let's say a snack option that was in my normal limits, what I'm used to. So I could either choose that, or I could choose the one with the higher amount of calories. So say, for example, if I did choose the higher amount of calorie cake, if you're keeping up with what I'm talking about, I might choose to break off a little bit of the higher calorie option so it fits in line with what I normally have. Now, even though the two options would be the same calorie-wise, energy-wise, or even in terms of nutritional value, what isn't the same is the type of behaviour I've done to get it to that point. So instead of me actually just choosing the cake and eating it anyway, regardless of how many calories it had in it or what ingredients were in it, I've actually actively gone out of my own way to break food away from what I was eating. So to think about it, a normal person would not do that. They'd actually think, yay, for me, I get to eat more cake or more of whatever it is. But if you're suffering from an eating disorder or you're used to following a rigid meal plan, you might be so tempted to break bits off of food or throw things away or not eat as much just so you can get it within your normal calorie quota. And for me, that isn't real recovery because you're playing too safe. Even though you might be eating a normal amount or enough for your body, enough to get it to a healthy weight, you're still choosing a disordered method of behaviour in order to keep it there instead of actually being able to trust in the process of recovery, even if it means eating a snack that's twice the amount of calories you normally have, or going out and eating something that's of unknown calorie value, which I couldn't recommend that enough. That's probably the best thing to do, to be quite honest. But if you are in the initial stages of recovery and maybe calories feel quite important to you, and monitoring exactly what you're eating feels quite important to you, also breaking free from those rigid routines eventually is an important part of real recovery, because we could eat normally or what other people view as normally, but we're still stuck in a rigid cycle of eating at exact times with little room for manoeuvre. Let's face it, we all know how that feels if you've got an eating disorder. And also sticking with the same foods, you have a bunch of safe foods, and you still have a long list of fear foods, and you're not tackling them. That's not real recovery. It's not. Even if you're eating a bazillion calories a day, but choosing safe options that feel better over a fear food option, that's choosing the eating disorder through and through. Now, you can choose to live like that if you want to. But for me, my real recovery process started when I started to stand up for myself and go, hell no, I am not picking an option that's ruled by my eating disorder, because eventually that choice will lead to cutting out something else, choosing another healthier option, or cutting out a certain food group, and before you know it, you're right back to square one, experiencing a relapse, and recovery isn't on the menu at all. And this has happened to me plenty of times. But now I'm so thankful that I've gone through relapses that much that I know the signs of when it's happening or when I'm choosing the eating disorder, and I know when to address it head on. Because if we don't address it head on, it sneaks its little way in the door, or when we're having like a bit of a low time or we're feeling anxious and it goes, there, you know what will make you feel better? If you just cut a little bit of that food off or have a lower calorie option, or maybe you want to skip a snack, maybe that'll make you feel better. And we know it will in the short run, but in the long run, you're going to keep going back to that safety mechanism, even though, it really isn't safe at all. And that brings me to another point of real recovery, and something that we need to learn to accept, and that's the probability of relapses. So recovery almost always, 99.9% of the time, involves many relapses. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you might choose the eating disorder option, but not all the time, but you'll learn from that. You might sometimes feel as though you're so tempted to give in to the eating disorder voice. You might go a whole day, week even, resorting back to how the eating disorder lifestyle was. But importantly, you notice that and then choose recovery. Relapses are often inevitable, but what we can often do, as I've done so many times, I've gone, you know what, sod it. I'm giving up because this always happens. I'm never going to have a free life. I'm always going to be governed by the restrictions of an eating disorder. When will this ever end? But I'd like to say on that note, relapses are an integral part of recovery. They actually make you learn more about yourself and how to recover in a better way. Because I can guarantee for every step backward that I've taken, whether it's been for days, weeks, months, or even years, it's allowed me to take 2 steps forward or even more, because I have learned every single trick in the book of what eating disorders do, whether that's tricking you into thinking that you're in real recovery when you aren't, staying in that quasi-recovered state of, I want to get well, but I still don't. I'm kind of torn between the devil and the deep blue sea. But also, fundamentally, I know how to choose life. Even when it feels really scary and I have to do things in life off the cuff, unexpectedly, and, which is a fun part of life. But real recovery is actually being trusting and experimental enough to say, you know what, even though the safer option is disordered, but it feels as though it would help me in the short run, it's to having the courage and the confidence to say no. Real recovery is about standing up for yourself, even in times of weakness, and saying no. It's about saying yes to life, even if it feels so goddamn scary and that you're sitting on the edge of a cliff and you don't know there's going to be another ledge to jump onto. Real recovery is about taking that leap of faith, no matter what you weigh, what you look like, or what a medical professional says to you, because you know yourself better than anybody. And I'm going to leave it on that note, because I think when you look more within inside yourself, you know whether you're in real recovery mode or not. And if you're still living within the dregs of restriction, even if on the outside to others it looks like you're eating normally or you're a healthy weight and still able to engage in, most social activities, but still restrictively, then I think you know what you need to do. And thankfully, from my experiences, I've got so many resources and tools in my mindset of how I cope now. And I think I'll probably leave that for another video so I don't blabber on. But what tools can you pull out your little rucksack in order to fight the eating disorder back and start to engage in the mode of real recovery again? Is it saying no to breaking off pieces of bread or chucking away little bits of your food items to make it feel in your normal range of calories? Is it about saying yes to social occasions out even when you feel really scared about that? Is it about saying no to taking safe snacks along with you instead of, going full hog and having what's on the menu, even if it's an unknown calorie item or a high calorie item off a cafe menu? These things all form a massive part of recovery, and it's about the journey and not the end point. For me, I've kind of learned that recovery is never an end point. And although full recovery is possible, and it's what I'm experiencing now, of course we have bad days when eating disorder related thoughts might crop up. But at the end of the day, you have the power and strength to say no, and you don't see or hear about them for longer than a day or a week. You're able to get back into the seat of real recovery and drive your own life forward rather than being puppeteered by this evil thing that is your eating disorder. So, on a final note, see your eating disorder as that, this evil thing that wants to take over your life and stop you from entering real recovery. And as hard as it may seem some days, just know that the other side, even though you might not be able to see what's on it, is so, so much better than the life you're probably currently living. Again, no matter what you weigh or look like. So I hope that's made sense. And as I always do, I tend to babble on about nothing and just do the wing it method on these videos. But I really hope it's been helpful. And please reach out to me if you need any support, want to ask me any questions for future videos. If you want to find out more specific related to support around eating disorders, I have a book called Nourishing Routes out at the moment, and I'm currently publishing a book called Gaining Weight and Reclaiming Life in Recovery. And you can also subscribe to this channel, which will be awesome because I'm looking forward to creating an even bigger recovery community over here on YouTube. And also I've got recovery topics on my website at www.nourishingroots.com. God, what am I like? Can't get my words out today. But in the meantime, have a fabulous week, and I'll definitely be speaking to you very soon. Bye.